Geometry problems are a little bit different from the consecutive integer problems that we looked at before. We're still looking for relationships, and we're going to go through the exact same process. We're going to assign a variable, we'll write an equation, we'll solve the equation, we'll answer the question and check our work. As we look at this problem, Jane has a rectangular garden. She's got space for width and length. She has 200 total feet of fence. What are the dimensions of the largest space she can designate? Okay, so we know we have a rectangle, and we're looking for dimensions. So the dimensions of a rectangle means that we need to have a definition for length, and we need to have a definition for width. And that's really what we need to come up with. Now, as we look at this, we need to take a second. And so the assignment of variables is a little bit more challenging in this case because we want to make our life a little bit easier. We're going to look at the relationship that's up here. What we're told is that it's 30 feet wider than it is long. So we need to ask ourselves, which dimension is longer? And what we're told in the problem, it's 30 feet wider than it is long. So the width is going to be the longer of the two dimensions. So let's take a second, and I don't like using the letter L for length, only because L looks like 1 when you're writing it. So let's let X be our length, and then we need to have a way of defining the width. And it's 30 feet wider, so that's 30 feet more than its length. Again, as we get started, we want to make sure that we're careful and that we're clear with what we were thinking and what we're doing. So it's 30 feet wider than it is long. The width needs to be the longer of the two numbers, or the two values that we're going to find. And by adding 30 to the length, that will give us what we want. The next thing we need is we need to write an equation. Well, again, we're looking at perimeter, just like we were in the traffic island problem. We have 200 feet of fence to put around the garden. And so that's going to be the perimeter, right? The distance around the outside of the object. Now, you're welcome to know the formula for the perimeter of a rectangle, but it really doesn't matter. In the end, perimeter is always the same. It's the distance around the object. And so when we start looking at the distance around our object, that's the length plus one of the widths, plus the other length, plus the other width, right? That's the distance around the outside of our garden, and that's going to be the fence that we have to lay. And we have 200 feet of it. Okay, going back to our variables, that means that we have x plus 30 plus x plus 30 equals 200, right? Length plus width equals 200. Combining like terms, we get 4x plus 60 equals 200. Subtracting 60 from each side gives us 4x equals 140. Dividing both sides by 4, it doesn't go in evenly, but if we do the division, we get, it does go in evenly, right? So that works out nicely. We get 35. 140 divided by 4 is 35. So we could write down the dimensions of the garden R, but because in this case we were given specifically that the length is shorter than the width, we should be careful with our sentence. The length of the garden is 35 feet, and the width is 65 feet. Notice a couple things, right? We have to write our answer in the form of a sentence, and our sentence needs to be clear. We need to specify which one is our length and which dimension is our width. And we need to make sure that we're careful to use units. In this problem, 35 feet is the length of the garden, and it's different from 35 or 35 meters or 35 inches. We should still check. The first check we should do is the width 30 more than the length. Yes. Then is 35 plus 65 plus 35 plus 65 equal to 200, right? Does that work? Well, 30 and 30 is 60, and 60 is 120, and 60 is 180, and 5, 10, 15, 20, 180 and 20. Yeah,